Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome Lucy Williams. Lucy was in the Joy of Cruising in a section called The Influencer as the traveling wife cruising around the world. As you might expect, my interest was immediately piqued when I came across her catchily titled blog. It turned out that the traveling wife cruising around the world was much more than just a catchy tagline. It literally was a way of life for her by virtue of the fact that Lucy, a former cruise ship employee, was the spouse of a cruise ship officer, and she cruised with him full time. In her 30s, as a traveling wife, Lucy has been on over 60 cruises, totaling approximately 600 days, and has visited over 80 countries. Amazing, right? Well, that has just been since 2015, when Lucy started cruising as a traveling wife. It doesn't include the hundreds of cruises and destinations Lucy experienced as a crew member, so many that she doesn't remember her first as a 24-year-old jewelry shop hostess. Lucy, welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Oh, I am doing well. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Nice to be here.
I shared some background with the listeners. Fill us in on some details. Where are you from? How did you get involved with working on cruise ships?
So I'm from the UK, but I live in Italy now because my husband's Italian. So I live there now. How did I get started on ships? So I was 24 when I started. I was working in the jewelry industry and I saw an advert in a trade magazine and I thought, oh, that sounds fun. And it was to work in the jewelry store on board. So I applied as I wanted to travel and get away from everything. And 4 months later, I'm on a ship. And I thought, oh, I'll do this for a year and then I'll go back home. But that never happened. And so I really enjoyed the job. It was really fun. I met lots of good friends and it was fun, working with people. I became absolutely addicted to travel. And then I met my future husband. So I ended up in the end, I stayed for nearly 10 years working on board. And I obviously got promoted amongst those years as well. And then it stopped.
Now, prior to starting in the jewelry shop as a 24-year-old, had you cruised?
No, never. Never been on a ship. Mm-hmm. Never been on a ship.
Well, so what was it like, with your first couple of days on the ship?
Oh, very strange. Very strange. It's so alien to normal life. In a good way, but you're 1 minute you're on land and you can use your phone and you can go everywhere. When I first started, we didn't have the internet on our phones, so it wasn't so bad. But it was just really, really different. You go from living in a big house and then you're living in a little cabin. It's so different, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But I really enjoyed it. It took a couple of weeks and then I was fine. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, settled in well.
Now you mentioned meeting your husband, so that gets us right into talk about becoming the traveling wife cruising around the world.
Okay, so as I said, I worked for nearly 10 years on board. And I met my husband. And then what happens with most people who work on board, you end up meeting somebody because you're working in very close quarters and it's the only way you really meet people. So in the end, it was just difficult for us to both be scheduled on the same ship but there was only one of my position, one of his position. So it became difficult. So I stopped. And at the end of 2015, I stopped working. And then I started traveling with him full time. And the traveling wife, that's what we call a wife that travels on board with her husband all the time on board. So that's where the traveling wife comes from. And what happened? So the blog is the traveling wife cruising around the world. But what happened was I had traveled for about just over a year. And then I decided, instead of just sharing my pictures on Facebook with my friends and family, I thought, why don't I start a blog? Write in more detail about my travels, as I was about to go on a world cruise. So I thought, perfect timing to start a blog. And so in 2017, that's when Lucy Williams Global, the traveling wife cruising around the world, started. Yeah.
So what's it like being a traveling wife? How did you spend your time? What were the pros and cons?
Well, it was very different to working on board, because all of a sudden I had all this free time, which I wasn't used to. But it was really fun, because then I could see it from the other side of the coin and, start being a passenger, which was fun. So I think I've done every shore excursion going, which was fun. Lots of entertaining as well with my husband. So he had to host tables a lot. So I did a lot. I was with him. So we did a lot of hosting tables and cocktail parties. I did a lot of exercising, because, as you know, cruising is all about the food. And if you don't exercise, you become the size of a house. So I was exercising a lot, walking around the ports, going to the beaches, shopping. But the pros and cons, the pros are, of course, traveling and seeing lots of different places, being in a different place every day, being with my husband all the time when he's not working. Cons, because I used to be on board for 4 months at a time, 3-4 months at a time. It was long. So it becomes not, you're not really on a cruise anymore, it becomes a way of life. So it's a bit of a strange life, and you miss things at home with your family and things as well. So that's one of the cons, but most of it was pros, I would say. It was it was really fun life.
So let's focus on a big pro, the travel. You've seen so much of the world as a traveling wife. We probably don't have enough time to talk about, too many of the highlights. So let me pick a cruise that I'm sure is on some listeners' bucket list. In The Joy of Cruising, I wrote about your 111 days, 36 ports, 25 country, 6 continents world cruise. That's a mouthful. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic cruise. I highly recommend it if you have the time to do it. 36 ports, sorry, not points, 25 countries, 6 continents. We transited through 2 canals, sailed through 10 seas, crossed 3 oceans, and spent 73 days at sea in 111 days. It was amazing. It really was. I met some fantastic people from all corners of the globe. And what was the nice thing was, because you were there for 111 days, so 4 months, you really got to know people. Because if you go on a 7-day, 10-day, 2 weeks, you get to know people, but not really that well. But when you do a world cruise, you really get to know people, which is really nice. And I've got still friends from the world cruise now, which I keep in touch with, which is lovely. And it's more of a relaxed atmosphere when you do a world cruise, because we've got lots of time. There's a lot of days at sea, but there's a lot of ports as well. So it's a nice atmosphere. The ports. Would you like me to run through the ports
which
we went
ones?
to?
Which ones
Let's
stood out?
have a look. So because world cruises, I started in LA, and then we went straight to Bora Bora because we had bad weather. We were meant to go to Honolulu and do 5 days at sea, but there was bad weather when we joined. So we had to go straight down to Bora Bora in French Polynesia. So it was 8 days at sea.
Oh,
That was the
wow.
start of the cruise. Yeah. I think that point was the longest I'd done at sea. I'd done 7 days before, but not
Mm-hmm.
8 days. So that was long. I was very happy to reach port when we got there. Then the next day we were in Papeete in French Polynesia. Then we had a few more days at sea. We went to the Bay of Islands in New Zealand, then Auckland in New Zealand, then Sydney, Australia, then Cairns, Australia. Then we went up to Papua New Guinea, to Rabaul, then Guam, Micronesia. Then we went up to Taiwan, Kashung, then Hong
Wow.
Kong, then Sanya in China, then Singapore, then Phuket in Thailand, then Cochin in India, Mumbai in India, then Dubai. Then we went back down to Middle East, Dubai, UAE, Aqaba for Jordan. Then we went through the Suez Canal. Then we went up. Then we headed to Greece. We went to Rhodes and Hania and Zakynthos. Then we headed over to Italy. We went to Bari. Then back to Croatia for Hvar. Then back to Italy for Venice. Then back to Croatia for no, maybe I got that wrong. Anyway, Sibling. Then we went down to Malta for Valletta. Then Trapani, Italy. Then Ceuta for Spanish Morocco. Then we went to Portugal. We went to Portiamo. Then we did the crossing over the Atlantic.
So what's that? What's that like? Crossing the Atlantic. How many sea days was involved with that?
That's from Portiamo. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
6 days. 6 days. It depends on what your last port was. I've done it so many times. It depends on your last port. It can be 7 days, can be 6, depending on which was your last port. But the last port we had, it's classed as Portugal, but it's not on the mainland. It's
Mm-hmm.
more out at sea. So I think it was 6 days.
So
Sorry.
it
was long.
when you were mentioning those ports, I was thinking, so many people have some of those ports on their bucket list. I think I've been to one that you mentioned, Venice, which was wonderful. What are some of those? Which of those ports were your favorites?
Favorites, I'll have to say is Petra for Georgia in Jordan. We did that. That was one of my favorites. That was fantastic. Hong Kong, because I saw the Big Buddha, and it was one of the things on my bucket list at the time to do. That was really good.
How much time did you have in Hong Kong?
We had 2 days. We had 2 days.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
to be honest, I had been to Hong Kong before, so I'd already seen quite a lot, but I'd never made it to the Big Buddha. And I always wanted to do that. And that was absolutely amazing, because you don't realize how big it is until you get there.
So on most of those port stops, did you spend overnight?
No. Some places, yes, but most of the places, no. But it would be long days in port. So maybe we arrive about 7 in the morning, and sometimes we'd leave 7 p.m. or like 9, 10, depending on where we were. But sometimes, yes, there were overnights in some ports.
I've never had the fortune to spend overnight in a port. I'd love to do that.
Oh, really? Oh, it's fun. It just extends it a bit more. It's really nice. You can do, especially if you want to do something in the evening. It's really nice to do. Yeah, I've done a lot over the years. So it does make it more fun.
Now, forgive me if this is a naive question, but is there such a thing as when you have overnight port stop for passengers to stay in a land hotel, or do they typically always sleep on the ship?
And most of the time you have to come back. I mean, if you want to stay out all night and then come back, it depends on where you are and how safe it is. So sometimes you'll be told still a time to come back by.
Even though it's not leaving until the next day.
Yeah, you can stay out all night if you want to. You can. I remember when we did this world cruise, when we were in Hong Kong, some guests did get off and stay in hotels.
Okay.
Not Hong Kong, was it Singapore? No, Singapore. They stayed in Singapore for a couple of nights.
Okay.
Because some of the ports we did do 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And some places, because you could go on land excursions as well.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the places it was easy and then you could pick the ship back up.
Mm-hmm.
But normally most people come back
Mm-hmm.
if it's an overnight. They just come back but you can come back at your own leisure. You don't have to rush, which is the great thing about an overnight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just would think that if you're on the ship for that long for, a world cruise, that it might be kind of nice to break things up, by staying in a land hotel. Although I know that's obviously added expense.
Yes, of course. A lot of people did it though, because like I said, there were some land tours you could go on, and then you would be staying in a hotel. Yeah, so it's definitely possible if you do a long cruise like the World Cruise.
So what talk about some other highlights of traveling as the traveling wife going around the world?
Well, the top highlight was I could go on every shore excursion I wanted to, which was really nice, and seeing all those sites.
What were a couple of favorites?
I love Bora Bora. I've been there a lot, actually. I've been very lucky, but I love to go to Bora Bora. I love the beach there. It's beautiful. Also, I enjoyed going to Sydney in Australia. That was fun. I actually met up with an old ship friend there who I hadn't seen for 10 years, which was great. So I met up with them and it was really fun.
That Sydney, Australia is on a lot of bucket lists.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was one place I hadn't been actually much. I haven't really seen much of Australia. I always wanted to do more of Australia, but I never managed it. I've been on 2 world cruises. One I worked and the other one I cruised. And they're the only times I've ever made it to Australia. Never done a cruise around Australia.
Now let's talk about the one that you worked. Contrast working during a world cruise and being the traveling wife cruising around the world on a world cruise.
Okay. Being a traveling wife was a lot more relaxing. Busy, but relaxing. Working a world cruise was very exhausting, because what I used to do was, because I didn't know if I was ever going to go back to some of these places, I would jump on a shore excursion and be a escort. So I would help the tour guide and go with the passengers. So I'd go on tour all day, get back, get changed, and then go to work. I don't know how I did it, but I was young. I was a lot younger, so it was easier.
So how long was that world cruise when you were as an employee?
That was 105 days.
Oh wow, it was just as long.
But that wasn't but my contract, I stayed on that ship for nearly 8.5 months, I believe. I extended my contract and I just kept staying. And but actually, it was funny. I left in Dover, in the UK, and I returned in Dover. But I'd been all around the world. I flew to Alaska. Did Alaska. Went to Honolulu. Went down to Tahiti. Did part of South America. Did the Panama Canal. Then did a world cruise. And we sailed all around the world. But that world cruise started in Fort Lauderdale and it ended in Dover.
Now, when you did the world cruise as an employee, did you have much time off to enjoy the port stops?
Yes, because I was in the shops back in those days. I wouldn't say it's like that now, but when I did a world cruise and I was and I wasn't a manager then, I was just in the shops. So it was easier. We had less hours. We were working. So when we left port, we opened the stores. So, and then it was a really small ship as well. So we would be, maybe we'd open from like 7 or 8 in the evening till 11 o'clock at night. So we weren't really working that much. Okay, the sea days we were working all day. But we had a lot of time off, apart from if we received stores in some of the ports. So if it was like Sydney, for example, we receive a lot of stores, or where we receive them. In some of the major ports, we would get stores, but sometimes they wouldn't make it in time. The ship was sailing on, so it was a strange cruise.
So when you say get stores, correct me if I'm wrong. Does that mean that you would kind of replenish your supply?
Yeah, so we'd get all our merchandise.
Okay.
Obviously, the food always came. The food always arrived, but sometimes our merchandise wouldn't always arrive because if it arrived the day after, we're gone and we never came back. So sometimes we could be waiting around and nothing show up, and other times it would. So sometimes, but in a world cruise, we were not like a regular cruising where, let's say, we're in Fort Lauderdale and we always receive stores in Fort Lauderdale. That didn't happen. So.
A few years ago, you and your husband, and your husband is Paulo, right? I recall a couple of years ago, you and Paulo left the cruise line to do some hospitality work in the UAE. Talk about that.
Well, it was a fantastic experience. We always fancied going to the UAE. It's very different there. It's very modern. It's a new place to live. So we got jobs out there. We made some great friends. We lived in this amazing apartment complex on a private beach. It was a really nice way to live. It's completely different to living in Europe. It was really, really fun. But then the pandemic hit and it all stopped.
So for our listeners and for me, what is the UAE? What is the UAE comprised of?
Oh, so sorry. So you've got it's the Emirates. So you've got Dubai, you've got Ras Al Khaimah, you've got Abu Dhabi. Now I'm forgetting all. There's seven. There's seven Emirates inside the UAE. So. Yeah, and we were working in Ras Al Khaimah, which is 45 minutes from Dubai, and it's the seaside resort of Dubai.
Now, Dubai is on my bucket list.
It's fantastic.
You mentioned Dubai on your world cruise, and then you lived 45 minutes away. So I suspect you visited Dubai quite a bit when you were working there.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Well, that's what actually gave us the idea about Dubai, because we'd been there a few times on the ship and thought, wouldn't it be fun to work there? And then it actually happened years later. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for very long. But
so for those of us who have Dubai on our bucket list, me, just say a little bit about what it's like, because whenever I see photos, I'm looking at things like, the biggest mall in the world, or I saw, I guess it also was a mall, had a ski resort inside.
Yes, You've got the Emirates Mall, which has the ski slopes in there, and it's freezing. It really is like being in the mountains. So
wow.
So that's in the Emirates Mall, the original mall in Dubai, and then you've got the Dubai Mall, which is huge. It takes forever to walk around. It's absolutely massive, and it's got everything you can possibly think of. It's huge. And that is also where, if you've seen the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, that's where the entrance to that is, in the Dubai Mall. And then so that is amazing in itself. You go in an elevator, is it 125 floors? It's very tall. You go in the elevator and it's so fast. It's like it's like going in a spaceship. It's so funny. But it's amazing when you get up there. I remember when I went up there and it was cloudy and it was so strange. It felt like you were really in the sky. It really did. It was such an experience. But Dubai changes every year. There's something different being built. You are on a building site. Something is always being built. You always see a crane. There is a crane, a new building going up. It's that's what I meant when it's modern, because there's always a new building going up. Several a year.
Well, I think I just moved Dubai up my bucket list. So I understand that now Paulo is back working on ships. Do you plan to become the traveling wife cruising around the world again?
Yes, but only part-time this time. Which is, yeah. Well, I'm working at home now, so I can go part-time. My job's quite flexible, so I can go as little or as often as I like. But it's really interesting actually being on MSC because they're very different. The last company we were on, the ships are completely different.
I'm sorry for interrupting. So that's what Paulo's on now is MSC?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah. I want to hear more because MSC is I have that booked for this year.
What ship are you going on?
The Meraviglia.
Oh yes, I was just on the Grandiosa. It's the sister ship. It's absolutely out of this world. The ship is beautiful. If you look on, I'll share with my Instagram. But if you go on my Instagram, I have some fantastic reels of what the ship is like inside. Because there's a galleria, and the ceiling is all lit up, and they play videos on it, and they change it all. It's absolutely fantastic. You haven't seen anything like this on a cruise ship. It's really, really
well.
special.
I'm excited. So continue. So what's Paulo is on which ship?
He was on the Grandiosa.
Okay.
He was on the Grandiosa. Now he's home at the moment. But he will be going on another ship soon.
Okay. How can we follow Lucy Williams on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram at Lucy Williams Global. The same on Facebook, Lucy Williams Global. I'm on Twitter as well, and Pinterest, TikTok, everything. But it's just Lucy Williams Global. Easy to find.
But you still, on Lucy Williams Global, there's still the Traveling Wife that cruises around the world blog, right?
Yes, the blog is still going. It's I'm I'm picking it back up. So I am adding new posts now. But actually, there are some new posts from my time on MSC now as well, and I'm going to be adding more and more about MSC. Because it is very different to my last post.
So you blog about MSC. I will be checking that out as soon as we get off this call. So let's talk a little bit about the future. Do you have anything booked?
Okay. Hopefully, I'll be going on my husband's next ship. I think it's the Orchestra, and it will be in the Mediterranean. But so I'm hopefully going to do that in the summer. So I'm just waiting to see. I'll be looking forward to that. The Mediterranean. Have you done the Mediterranean?
Yeah, I did the Mediterranean in October. My wife and I celebrated our 30th anniversary.
Oh, lovely! Congratulations.
Yeah, we actually stayed in the country you're in. We stayed in Italy.
Okay.
Arezzo, am I saying it right? Arezzo or Arezzo? Anyway, we stayed in Arezzo, Italy for a week, and then, actually maybe a week and a half, and then we got on the Celebrity Beyond, and we did the Mediterranean.
Oh, fun!
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good. That's one of my favorite cruises, the Mediterranean.
Yep. Well, now let me ask you this. You've been to the Mediterranean no telling how many times, and you've been to
Mm,
Dubai and you've been on a
mm,
couple of world cruises. Do you have a
mm.
bucket list? I mean, you've done it all.
Yeah, that's a hard one because I have been nearly everywhere, but I would like to see more of Japan.
Ah,
I would like, yeah. I mean, I have been to Japan on when I was cruising, a lot of time when I was working, but I would like to see more of Japan.
so do you want to do a land trip there or cruise?
Yes, yeah, I'd like to do a land trip,
Okay,
spend some time in Tokyo, go back to Osaka.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Anything else on your bucket list?
I mean, I'm always happy to go back to most places I've been to,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't mind going back to Hawaii, actually. I do love Hawaii. Yeah,
Well,
Hawaii's fun.
well, Lucy, I'm catching you because I'm going to Hawaii in a few weeks.
Ooh, fun,
So,
fun.
yep, yep.
Very nice.
So let's shift gears, but before we let you go, I want to ask you a couple of fun cruise questions, and then maybe an oddball question. So
Okay.
I'm sure that when you were doing your traveling wife cruising around the world duties, indicated that you went to a lot of events with Paulo. What's your favorite
Mm.
cruise drink and cruise dish?
Okay, food,
Yep,
baked
yep,
Alaska. You
yep.
know what I mean by baked Alaska? The ice cream. I love that. And then drink, I'm quite boring. I like red wine. I
Okay.
have had a lot of cocktails, but I
So
don't drink
red
cocktails.
wine.
Red wine, very boring.
Okay. What's your most memorable or funny or
Mhm.
embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Okay, I'll have to go with port experience. Years ago, we were in Hong Kong. I was still working, and my husband said, "Oh, before he was my husband, actually, let's go out in Hong Kong. We go to a really nice restaurant." But okay, great. So I got all dressed up, little black dress, stilettos, looking nice. And then he organized a nice car to come. I thought, oh, this is a nice evening. I wonder where we're going. And we were driving, driving, driving. I thought, where are we going? And we arrive at this fish market. This is in the evening. We had an overnight in Hong Kong. And I thought, why are we at a fish restaurant? And he said to the driver, are you sure it's here? He goes, yeah. I asked, my husband had asked the port agent, best, fish restaurant in Hong Kong. So we get to this fish market. And I was like, I'm not really dressed for a fish market. I stuck out like a sore thumb. And we walked into this fish market, which it is a fish market, one side, and you can pick what you like. And then the other side are restaurants, but very, very casual. And we were the only Western people there. So we really stuck
Hmm.
out. So they said, oh, you pick the food and then you pick the restaurant. I thought, oh no, this was so embarrassing because
So,
everybody else is, in jeans and t-shirts, and I'm in this little black dress and heels and just look completely wrong. Wrong place.
so was your husband likewise overdressed?
Yeah, he was quite nicely dressed as well. So it was like, why are we here? But I will be honest, we picked some lovely fish. They cooked it fantastic, and it was really good. It was really good fish. But I said to my husband, next time we're in Hong Kong, can we go to a restaurant where I can get dressed up?
do,
We did do
do you
it.
do you happen to remember the dish you had, the fish you picked out?
I picked out some oyster. No, yeah, no. I had scallops.
Uh-huh.
And they were amazing. I had scallops, and I believe we had crab or lobster. I can't remember exactly, but they cooked it perfectly, and it was delicious. So, but I just would have rather have gone in my jeans.
Right, right. Now, finally, Lucy, I know that you have a following, and welcome to the Lucy Williams Global fans who are listening. So, share one thing that my listeners and your fans don't know about Lucy.
Hmm. Okay, let me think. Oh, I tell you one thing. Unless you happen to be on that cruise, you would not know this about me. This is when I was still working on board. And you know the show, what's it called? Dancing with the Stars?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So a long time ago, we were doing Dancing with the Stars. So the dancers would dance with the crew. So it was like Dancing with the Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And I took part. And I'm not that good at dancing, but I won. I won the
Wow.
competition with my dance partner. It was really fun. So we did quite a few shows with passengers each night, and then and I was voted to win, so I won one of them, which was and I've never done anything like that ever again.
Not bad for someone who says I'm not much of a dancer.
Yeah, it was fun though. It was fun. But my dance partner was very good at teaching me. We had to learn the merengue and the jive. So not too difficult, but it was nerve-wracking going on stage and doing that, and then knowing they were going to vote against you. That's what was nerve-wracking.
Now, was your dance partner a pro? I mean, really good?
Yeah, he was really good. It was, the ones who do the shows, the musicals on board. So we all had one.
Oh, okay.
Actually, yeah. So the ones who do the shows if they do a musical every night or every few nights. Yeah, my dance partner was.
Yeah, I will tell you, I've seen a lot of entertainers, nothing like what you've seen on the ships, but some of them are absolutely amazing.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. No, they are all very talented.
Well, finally, Lucy, we're going to put you to work. Please announce this week's winner of a copy of either The Joy of Cruising, which you were in, or Cruising Interrupted.
Okay, so the winner is Sandy Gale Lyons. Congratulations.
Great. So Sandy is a member of the Joy of Cruising podcast Facebook group. So I will follow up with her shortly. So Lucy, it's been a pleasure reconnecting with you after it's been, 5 years since you were in the Joy of Cruising. I'd love to have you back on because now we have a whole new set of questions related to, your time on MSC. Maybe we'll have you on after I do my MSC cruise and we can kind of compare notes.
Sure. That sounds like fun. Definitely.
All right. Well, all the best to you and Paulo. You take care of yourself, Lucy. Talk to you sometime soon, and I'll see you on the ocean.
See you soon. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted can be ordered at the link on the joyofcruisingpodcast.com, each for $16.99 plus shipping. Order the soon-to-be-released The Joy of Cruising again, also at thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com for $18.99. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. Again, the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast. Enter to win a copy of The Joy of Cruising or Cruising Interrupted while supplies last at thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or both to increase your chance to win. A winner will be announced on each show. Please leave us a review and tell a friend about us. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed the brief escape to the ocean. See you next week. Exciting news, passenger cruisers. The Joy of Cruising Again book was just released. Order the ebook at your favorite online retailer. The paperback can be ordered by copying the web address listed at the podcast website, www.thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. Don't forget to use the coupon code Joy of Cruising Podcast to get $4 off. We think you'll enjoy the new book as much as Paul enjoyed writing it, and we would love to hear your comments at the Joy of Cruising Again Facebook page or at the Joy of Cruising Instagram page. Thank you.